So how did we get to the point where we have 30 plus jars of beans? We noticed that every time we went to Aldi, the prices would go up just a few cents, And we kind of got sick of it going up just a few cents. So we decided we were going to start buying dried beans. Of course, when you're using dried beans, you have to plan ahead. You have to soak them for quite a while. But we would plan our dinners a couple days ahead of time. So if we needed beans for chilies, then we would throw them in the bowl the night before, soak them, put them in the pressure cooker, cook them up. And that worked great. But then my wife's friend started canning beans. Although it's in a jar, we are canning them, and Pam was very interested. She said, I could avoid this whole soaking overnight thing if I canned them. Tom, go to Costco and get me some beans. So I went to Costco, and there's a 10-pound bag of dried black beans, and I said, here we go. Organic black beans. Organic black beans. I wonder if she wants 10 pounds. Let's find out. Well, she said if we're in for 10 pounds of black beans, we're in for 2 pounds of garbanzo. So that's what we've been doing so far, trying to can all the black beans and all the garbanzo beans. And we did get the garbanzo beans. But let me show you where we're at with the black beans, because like I said, it was 10 pounds. This bowl holds all the black beans we still have to can. And Pam said, well, I'm going to go out and buy some new jars to put the beans in. Why don't I go through the pantry and find out what other open bags, half-finished bags we have. So she found this bowl of chickpeas. Well, she found a bag of chickpeas, a bag of chickpeas, and she threw it into this bowl. And like, hey, we're canning. We got a 23-quart canner. And so these are some navy beans she found. Anyway, Pamela went to Target. Bought 12 more cans. We hope all these beans fit in these cans. If they don't, we'll probably just pressure cook them and make something delicious. So that's the plan. While Pam is visiting her friend next door, my task is to find a place to hide all these jars and get everything set up for making the next batch. So before we get started, we have to wash the 23-quart pressure canner and all the accoutrements that come with it. And then we're going to wash our new collection of jars that Pam picked up today at Target. So let me get those washed up and then we'll get started. Oops. So don't do what I do. You have to be very careful with this mechanism on top. We just washed the lid of our pressure canner, so I'm putting it back together. And one thing my wife told me was that you have to make sure that this release valve here, the one where the pressure comes out, the weight sits on, you have to look through it and make sure nothing's blocking it before you start cooking. All right, so this is ready to go. Let's move over to the pressure cooker. I don't know which way's up. Which way's? Is there a which way's up? We put the basin here. And now we put in 3 quarts of water. Of course, this will all be edited. Along with the 3 quarts of water, you put in 2 tablespoons of vinegar. And you might say, why are we putting in 2 tablespoons of vinegar? Well, the instructions say to put in 2 tablespoons of vinegar. But they also explain that the 2 tablespoons of vinegar prevent the bottles from staining, or the jars from staining. And then you turn the heat on. I'm warming this pot up just a little bit, not to boil it or anything, but because when we put these jars in, these jars are going to be hot. If you put the hot jars in the cold water, bad things might happen. So we want the water in here to be warm. Not boiling, but warm. So let's talk about the other items we'll be using today. We have a kettle full of filtered water from the fridge, and I have this pitcher of filtered water to refill it because we'll be using this water in our jars. So I'm going to start this up. And if you're a regular viewer, you know that the lid doesn't stay shut, so we have to do that to keep it shut. So the strategy that we've come up with for cleaning these jars is to take the rings off, throw them in our boxer rings, take the seals and put them in this pot because we're just going to pour some hot water on those to clean them up. And then wash the jars in hot soapy water. So I was all gung-ho to get canning, but my wife reminded me we have to rinse the beans off first. So these are what's left of our 10-pound Costco bag of black beans. I'll pour them in the colander, rinse them off. If they all fit in the colander. They don't even all fit, so we're gonna do this in 2 stages. My wife found my efforts of rinsing the beans comical, and she just redid it much more thoroughly. And we had to rinse them off because they had baking soda on them. When you soak your beans, you should soak them in baking soda. We need to talk a little bit more about soaking the beans, because when Pam and I would soak beans for our chili or soup or whatever, as mentioned in the beginning of the video, we would use baking soda because baking soda softens the beans and makes them easier to cook. But softening the beans before canning them, I don't know. In fact, I'm kind of worried that I have dozens and dozens of jars of mushy beans. Were we wrong to use baking soda? No. Were we right to use baking soda? Also no. The more correct thing is to either add nothing, or some people go the other way and they'll actually put lemon juice in, because lemon juice tightens the skin. So it actually holds its shape better through the canning process. There are even people out there who don't soak them at all. They put the dry beans in the can, but the USDA does not recommend that. So the easiest strategy for beginners like me is just to soak them in water next time. Okay, back to the video. All right, let's get started. So one fun device we have is this little funnel, and you might say, is that really necessary, Tom? And I would say, yes, this funnel is absolutely necessary. It makes it so much easier. Otherwise, you have beans going everywhere. Looks like our black beans took up 10 of the 12 jars. So we started this off with the great idea of canning the leftover black beans along with the black-eyed peas and the navy beans that we found, but we're out of space. So the last 2 jars are going to get the black-eyed peas, and then we're going to just pressure cook the navy beans, make some navy bean soup, which will probably be an excellent next video. I think you're in the camera. Well, we didn't have enough black-eyed peas for that, so we'll finish our last jar with the navy beans, and then we'll take those few black-eyed peas and the rest of these navy beans, and we'll make some sort of soup. Now we use this canning salt, and we put a teaspoon into each jar, and then we fill it up with hot water. We fill each jar up to the bottom line in the jar. The next step is to wipe off the rim of each jar with some vinegar. So I put a little bit of vinegar into this bowl, and I'll take my paper towel and just wipe each one off. So what we're doing here is we're just cleaning off any possible debris so that when we put the seal on there, it'll seal nice and tightly with nothing obstructing it. This step's called degassing. This is where you get any bubbles that might be in there and try to force them out. Pam's using a chopstick. It really doesn't matter what you use as long as it's not metal. We finally got the beans in the jar. We filled them with water. We've degassed them. We've added salt. We've cleaned the rims off. We're ready to do the final step. Put the seals on and then put the rings on. And when we put the rings on, we just do it finger tight. We're not cranking down on them. And to do that, we have a real fun special tool. On the other end of our measuring, this is also a degasser if you're really aggressive, there's a magnet. Let me show you how much fun that is. I'll tell you, these canning people, they think of everything. And my assistant has shown you how to put the ring on finger tight.
Make sure to put them opposite this too. This is only a good time.
Now, I'd like to remind you all that I am no expert. This is only the 3rd time I've done this, and this is really the only time I've done it unsupervised, even though I'm being tightly supervised. So if you experts are out there and you see something I'm doing wrong, please let me know in the comments. But I think we're doing it pretty good. So now we place our jars in a semicircle, not touching the side. I'm going to put 6 in a circle. So I put 6 on the bottom layer. They're spaced out evenly and not touching the side. And then I'll put the next 6 on top. And that's it. Here's a better view of how they're stacked in our pressure canner. Our lid comes with these open and close arrows and that V or that arrow, and that lines up with the arrow there. So we put the lid on. And then twist it, and it might take a little bit of effort. And then we begin to heat it. Now the goal here is to get this gauge up to 11 pounds. But the problem is that as you heat it, it goes up, and then you're like, okay, it's 11 pounds, time to turn off the heat, but it's too late by then, and it shoots up way beyond 11. So what we've learned with our stove, and every stove is different, so you'll have to practice with yours, is that we set it on kind of warm, like 6 out of 10, and let it heat up till it gets to 9, and then we turn down the temperature. So I've turned it up to 6. Let's let the temperature increase. So what we're waiting to see is a stream of steam comes shooting out of this little hole here. It's kind of difficult to capture. I'm going to try to capture it. But the next step is to kind of wait until that happens. So I'm going to stay here in the kitchen while I wait for all this to come up to pressure. I can't go anywhere, so I might as well enjoy a delicious bottle of kombucha that my wife made. If you're interested in learning how to make kombucha, we'll make a video about it. Just let us know in the comments. Once this overpressure plug pops up, we know that the pressure is built up to a sufficient force inside our pressure canner. So we look at this vent pipe, and it's really tough to capture on film, but it's shooting up a steady stream of steam. Once you see that stream of steam, you let it go for 10 minutes. So we've been venting that steam for 10 minutes, and my hand model is going to show you how to properly place the weight on the stem. Perfect. Now we're going to see this gauge go up. Remember, we don't want to wait till it gets to 11 before we turn the heat down. As it approaches 11, we'll turn the heat down so it kind of slides right into the right temperature. Remember the beans we didn't have jars for? They're going into this navy bean soup. So we're up to almost 10 pounds of pressure. So I'm going to turn the heat down because the pressure is going to continue to increase. But we don't want to get it. Our goal is 11 pounds of pressure. You can tell both by the black dot next to the 10 there, and also because that's what it says in the instruction manual. You can see we've reached 11 pounds of pressure. So I'm going to do a couple things. Number one, I'm going to turn the temperature underneath down just a little bit so it stops climbing. But it's important that the pressure never drops below 11 once you hit it, because if it does, you need to start all over. Where does that rule come from? The instruction manual, of course. The other key thing is now that you've hit the pressure, you start the timer, 75 minutes. Hey Google, set a timer for 75 minutes.
1 hour and 15 minutes, and that's starting now.
I'd also point out that from the moment I turned the heat on underneath this to now, it's been about 40 minutes. No, it's been about 50 minutes. It's been about 50 minutes. So that's how long it takes. I mean, maybe if you started it with a more aggressive heating, then you could do it faster, but that's how long it takes us. Our 75 seconds are up, so I've turned the heat off. You can see that the pressure is starting to slowly drop. So now we have to let the pot sit here until the pressure gets down to 0, and probably even let it sit there a little while longer before we try to take the top off. And just for reference, we've been at this for about 2 hours since we first turned the heat on underneath. Our pressure is back down to 0, but that doesn't mean we can take the lid off yet. We really want to wait for this overpressure plug to drop down, and we want to wait till we stop hearing hissing noises coming out. I see that the overpressure plug has dropped and this thing has stopped hissing. We've been at this for almost 3 hours now. I'm going to take the lid off our pressure canner, but it still might be really hot inside, so I'm wearing these gloves just in case. Safety first. Now, if you can't twist that, then let it sit a little while longer because it's still under pressure. So I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but a lot of steam is still coming out. Remember that your gauge is really sensitive, so you don't want to just like place it on top or anything. Put it carefully over to the side. Now you can see I have a towel here. That's because this granite counter is cold relative to how hot these cans are, and I don't want to put a really hot jar, not can, but I don't want to put a really hot jar on the relatively cold granite and then watch it explode. And of course I have these grips to get it out. So carefully, one at a time, we'll take these out. And it's really important that once you take them out, you don't move them around or jostle them or slide them. Put them down and don't touch them until they cool all the way down. Yikes. Do not smash your jar into the side of the metal container. I did that just for demonstration purposes of what you shouldn't do. Do you hear those little pops? That is our cans sealing themselves. There's another one. I want to show you something interesting. See how that's still boiling on the inside? These are super hot. You just want to leave them completely alone and let them cool down on their own accord. So those popping sounds are coming from the lids that haven't sealed yet. You see those that have kind of a little dome on them? If we wait patiently, we'll see them pop into place, meaning that the seals have sealed properly. So there you go. 12 more cans of beans to join the 39 we did yesterday. If you ever get tired of the rising price of canned beans and want to join the bean canning movement that we have going on here, I hope that this video helps. If you see anything that I did that you liked or things that were questionable, you professional canners out there, leave it in the comments, let me know. Thanks, hope you liked it. And my hand model is going to show you how to properly place the weight on the stem. Shooting up a steady stream of stream. All right, so take your seal. Hey, that's not the magnet, that's a chopstick. Here's the magnet. Put the lid on. We put the lid on. I'm going to take the top off our canning, what is this thing called?